Where we left off last time, we had just selected this bottom piece, and I just used the up arrow to click it into place so it looks like one solid piece. And then I just wanted to add what looked like maybe the handle to this throwing knife. So I'll once again take the rectangle tool and just create another rectangle. Make this black so it looks like it could be the handle, and then just move it into place between these two objects. And you can see, even again, these smart guides are pretty powerful on here. It's something, you move it around enough and eventually something comes up that lets you know that that's centered. So now the idea is to make this so that it is a reusable piece. So what we do in that case is we just select all three pieces. We can right click on it and we have convert to symbol. We can also go to modify and convert to symbol. So two choices. They even have Command Y as a shortcut in there because, as you'll find throughout this class, this is one of the most powerful features in any animation program, is the use of symbols. Right now, what happens is it lets us name this, so I'll call it throwing K. This we don't really need to worry about for now, but that will come up soon enough. Click on OK, and what you can see happens now is over here in symbols, I now have a symbol that's available, and here is the power, is I can just click and drag out as many instances of that symbol as I want. Beautiful. As you can see, Edge doesn't really like to be pushed. If you get that spinning wheel, it's best just to let it do its thing. But the point I was making is that we can drag out as many instances of these symbols now as we want. Even if we delete every instance of the symbol, there's no more on stage, they still, or it still exists in the library. So I just want to clarify, the symbol is the thing that exists in the library, and what's on stage is just an instance or instances of the symbol. The same is true when you make it. As soon as you have it drawn on stage and you say convert to symbol, what is on stage is not your symbol, it's an instance of the symbol. That becomes more and more important to just understand that slight difference as you get more complex with them. But one of the key things about that is, if I change this, make this one smaller, there's still instances of the symbol. This one here just happens to be a modified instance. This instance is exactly as it was in the library. And I'm just going to delete these here just so we can start fresh. And so animating a symbol, especially a static symbol, meaning that the symbol itself doesn't have animation, is just as easy as animating anything else that you have done. Keep in mind that we have this new feature here that we're talking about, the auto keyframe, turned on. So we probably want to make sure that if we're going to move anything around, that we turn this off so it doesn't register those movements. So let's say, let me just figure out where I am here. So that just happened. Let's give ourselves just a small break here. And then let's animate our first throwing knife. So again, I turned the auto keyframe off. I'm going to make that look like it's just kind of resting over here in a slot. I want to spin that around, so I'll switch over to the transform tool and give that a 180-degree rotation. And then I'm just simply going to animate this from, let's say, this starting point right here. We'll go ahead and, for continuous practice on this, we'll animate this on a motion path. Turn on motion path. As soon as that happens, we only have the choice of an XY combined. Move over to my finishing spot. That little arc should show up. No, actually I got ahead of myself there. Let me just Command Z back up a step. Need to go over however far we want to go in time. Then move. Now here's would be a good time to turn the auto keyframe on. And try this next step both with it on and with it off so you can see the difference. The advantage of the auto keyframe is that if we move the playhead and then we do something to that object, it automatically inserts the keyframe for us. I'm going to put a little bit more of an arc on that by clicking and dragging. Then I'll go back to the beginning of that particular animation sequence. I will turn on, add a keyframe for the rotation, go back here with the insert on. I'm good. Actually, I want to back that up just a little bit here so it looks like it's kind of sticking half in and out. And then if I scrub the playhead, I can see what's happening now. If I want it to look like it's sticking into this, then I want to get that on top, and that right there is my target, so I should do the right thing and name it to make life easier. And then I'll just drag target up inside the elements, which does the same thing over here in the layers for the timeline, and there we go. Alright, so our next topic will be easing. So as of right now, we have these two animations that play what we refer to as linear, meaning that their movement is the same speed from start to finish. A lot of things, most things that we do naturally in our lives and with our machines are not linear at all. Things take a while to get started, things take a while to stop. So let's go ahead and experiment on this particular one right here. What I'm going to do is just click here, make sure that the animation is active. I'm going to go over to this little icon for easing, and I'll click on it, and it brings up the different options that we have. So by default, it's set to linear. So that means from the start of the animation to the end of the animation, everything is the same. If I click ease in, now you can see what happens is as it's moving in, there's not a whole lot, and then it takes off a little bit faster. Best way to see the difference is to compare a linear to an ease in to an ease out, and that's probably exactly what we'll do here. But let's just check it out with the ease in on. So you see how there's a little more speed towards the end? And then you can exaggerate that fact. We can go in here once again, click on this to fly it open. So we have ease in set as quadratic, and you can go through the different objects and or the different options in here. And like in this case, let's see which one seems the most dramatic here is probably this. Quadratic is probably the most natural one, but like this one right here, what we should expect is it to go pretty darn slow and then speed up quite a bit, which is exactly what we're seeing. So I just created another version of a similar animation with that same symbol, and this time let's put somewhat of an opposite ease on here. So if you remember over here, the ease that we had was easing in, and then we used a quart. So let's try easing out with the quart and see if the differences are obvious. So click on that, we'll go to ease out, quart, and then let's play these back to back. So you can see a big dramatic difference there, and it did have an effect on the rotation as well, because it pushed most of the action to the very let's see this. So this one starts out slow, that one takes off very fast, but for some reason it pushes the rotation to the very end of the animation as well. So certain things work better in certain situations. They definitely require some type of or a lot of experimentation, I'd say. And to show you the elastic versions, it's probably more appropriate with, like, the idea of a bouncing ball. And for those of you that are going to do bouncing balls, you definitely don't want just a circle, right? Because it's very hard to tell what a circle is doing if it's just one solid color. So let's say we have a circle here. What would make that far more interesting would be if it had even just a little highlight on it, so that if it spun around, we could actually tell that something's happening, or even just a logo. It doesn't really matter. So I'll just put a little something here. What I did was I added a little white circle here and just put a little bit of blur on it. So now we're ready to convert this into a symbol. Make sure that I have both items selected here, and then right click and convert to symbol. And what I like to do when I create a symbol, just to make sure that I got all of it, like sometimes you might think you had it all selected, is just go ahead and delete it and then drag out a new instance from the library, and if it looks right, you know you got it right. So now I'm going to do a couple animations of this, just dropping from the top to the bottom. So just something like this here, where we have both of those dropping, and you can see that it's just that typical no easing animation that, after you get an eye for this, starts to look a little bit fake, because very little things happen like that in nature. In fact, no, actually these look like they have the, let me just bring them back to linear. It looks like somehow the other one got applied to it. That one's linear. Okay, now they're both linear, I believe. Nope, one. But okay, so actually that is a very good thing to do, to compare different styles. But for some reason it's just picking up the last thing that I did on here. Okay, so now maybe if I hit enter, that might make it stick better. Okay, perfect. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put two of the other more extremes on each one of these. So this first one, I'll select it, and here we'll do an ease in, and we'll select bounce. So that bounce at the beginning, that's your ease in with a bounce. So that's kind of silly, right? So if we go now and we change this to ease out and bounce, we should see something that is a heck of a lot more interesting. So you can see what's going to happen now. This is going to go very fast at the beginning. So this represents 0 action to total action, and then it's going to bounce before it settles out. So eventually you kind of get to the point where you can read those too. So that's not bad. Now let's put something interesting on this one. So we'll also do an ease out, but this time we'll try elastic. Let's see what that looks like. It's a bit difficult to get the big picture of what's happening there when it goes by that fast, but let me just show you two things that might make it more understanding. So you can see that this one, normally the bottom represents the starting of the action and the top is the ending point of the action. Well, this one, oddly enough, actually goes beyond the finishing point of the animation. So what does that mean? Well, let's watch. Let's scrub the playhead here. So this is our bouncing ball. This is the one with elastic on it. Notice that the ball stops here. What's it doing below there? Well, that's what elastic does, is it kind of, if you had something that you were dropping into, like say a mattress or something, it would actually sink in, go below, then come back up, maybe like actually bouncing above, and then settle into place. And notice it did all that before the bouncing ball even arrives, and now the bouncing ball will do its thing. The elastic still does just a very slight bounce, but very different subtle things that you can do to make your animations more realistic.